Okay, so basically the throttle stick on the left controls your pitch, and your yaw, which is obviously your tail motor. So in the middle position is zero pitch. So that's kind of where it flies like an airplane. When you go from there, this is negative pitch. So this is going to make the helicopter, if it's flying level, it's going to push it down. But when it's inverted, it's going to push it up. So when you go, in fact, I'll show you really quick exactly how to tell. So if you look, we're just about at zero pitch right now. You can kind of see how the blade is almost level. That's zero pitch. Now this is where it'll fly like an airplane almost if you have enough speed, or even sometimes if you're going into a headwind will give you some lift, and it'll actually sometimes even gain altitude. I actually lost a fixed pitch helicopter this way because it doesn't have negative pitch, and it kept gaining lift and gaining lift and gaining lift, and I couldn't bring it back down, and it eventually just blew away. So this is when it goes negative pitch, and if you look the way the blade is facing, so that's negative pitch. Negative pitch, which is down like this, and then you got neutral pitch or zero pitch, which is pretty much center stick. Then you have positive pitch, which is the stick up. So a good way to tell the difference is look at your swash plate. So I'm gonna go up on the stick, give it positive pitch. So when you get positive pitch, your swash plate goes up. Negative pitch, it goes down. And zero pitch in the middle. So remember, swash plate up, positive pitch. We're about neutral, zero pitch, and then negative pitch, the swash plate goes down. So usually the way I like to do it, let's say you're hovering level like this. So if you're hovering level, you probably got a little bit of positive pitch. So when I go to flip, what I like to do is give it a little boost of positive pitch, let it climb a little bit, and then start pulling back and bringing her over. And then you want to kind of progressively bring it down. And then once you get to a certain point, you're going to start wanting to go down, giving it negative pitch. So basically the helicopter is going to react like this. It's going to climb a little bit, and it's going to kind of make a U shape. And I want to say right about when you get to this point, just past straight up and down, because when it's straight up and down like this, it's going to lose a little altitude, which again, if you're high enough, you're good. But like right when you get about here, you want to stop bringing in very easily bring in your negative pitch, which is going to be, you're going to basically, the stick movements look something along these lines. Sorry. Quick burst up, and then you're going to kind of slowly bring this back. And once it gets to that point, you start going beyond your center point. And you kind of want to start bringing it down nice and slow and like catch it almost. This is a kind of a term that this guy on West Hobbies RC uses, which makes a lot of sense in my brain. But when you start coming down here, you're probably right about here, and then you kind of, it might fall a little bit, But as you're coming down, very nice and easily, give it a little more negative pitch, and you're going to see it's probably going to stop falling and start climbing. And honestly, the first time that I did this, you know, it was like, took off like a rocket. So, and then you just kind of keep, you know, it's almost like backwards from when it's level. And then the other thing to remember is this is going to pitch the nose down. So if it's upside down and you give it some stick upward, it's going to go like this because it's going to go nose up. Think about it that way. Even though you're inverted, it's going to react the same way. So the up and down is going to be probably the trickiest thing that you're going to have to overcome. I feel like that was one of the hardest things for me to get. You know, a lot of crashes resulted in me mixing up. You know, you go to pull it back normally and you go this way and just dive into the ground. But basically the orientation, I'm pretty sure, is the same. So, you know, if you go left or right stick, it's going to roll like this. And you can kind of almost do a roll in the same way, you know, bring it up a little bit, give it that positive pitch, and then as it turns around, start giving it the negative pitch to catch it so it doesn't, because if you keep giving it positive pitch, it's just going to go full force right into the turf. And that's probably one of the worst crashes you're going to have, because you're going to bend your feathering shaft and break all your linkages. But you know, you can buy 2 feathering shafts for like $5-6, and then a whole bag of these linkages for like $5. These helicopters are really made to crash, and they are pretty tough. You know, you might break some servo arms once in a while. That's pretty typical. I like to buy, when I get a helicopter like this that I kind of figure that I'm going to crash a lot, I like to buy a lot of extra parts that commonly break. And I found that with this helicopter, the linkages break, the servo arms break, which it's really not a big deal. And then the feathering shaft, which is a shaft that goes through the center here, those bend sometimes, and sometimes it's hard to see when they do bend, but you'll know it because when you start it up, the thing will shake like crazy. Sometimes they get bent just a tiny bit, and then it'll even take off, but the thing shakes violently in the air. So, you know, if you have those issues, that's a good way to tell, you know, that your feathering shaft is probably toast. But what was I gonna say? So basically, the difference between 3D mode and angle mode that I didn't understand until I actually watched somebody fly in 3D mode is that when it's in angle mode, when you go forward and let it go back to center, it'll react like this. Forward, and then you release it, and it'll go right back to level again. So when you're in 3D mode, if you basically do the same thing where you go forward and release it again, it's gonna stay banked however far you let it go. And then if you want to bring it back to level, you actually have to give it some back stick, bring it back a little bit to correct it. Now, where a lot of guys get lost is it's like this in all angles. If you bank it this way and go back to center stick, it's just going to keep going like this until you give it some of the opposite way to correct it. So the challenge that you got to remember is that it's doing that all the way around, and you're always kind of correcting it. Now, that being said, if you feel like you are going to crash or you lose orientation, you know, let's say it's going like this, going ready to get the ground, angle mode, it'll go whoop, level itself right away. So I would say I use angle mode as like a bailout or like a safe, because even I've had it inverted plenty of times, and you just hit angle mode and it just corrects itself. But now keep in mind, if you do that and you're upside down and you're in negative pitch, once it corrects itself, the negative pitch is going to keep pushing it towards the ground. So now what you got to do is start getting into the positive pitch again. That way it starts getting lift in the opposite direction and brings it up. So I hope this helps.